Hello class, just cold chilling in my Prius. I know the video quality isn't always the best, but to be honest with you, I make these videos where and when I'm inspired. Not only am I not a Prius guy, I am the person that would always make fun of people that drive a Prius. I've always been an SUV guy. But with a growing large family, you can't argue with up to 103 miles to the gallon, and this car is really comfortable. Anyways, to the business at hand, I want to talk to you about a professor I had at Cal State Los Angeles named Dr. Olsen. I hated him. I hated everything about him, and he was the most difficult professor I've ever worked under. He had a policy for papers. He would read until he was intellectually offended. He would stop where he was intellectually offended, which means he found a mistake, circle it in red, and that's how you would get your paper back. Without a grade on it, just a red mark indicating he had been offended intellectually and had stopped reading. Anyways, I had written a paper, and the very first line of my paper, so I thought, I had written, first I will critique this, then I will critique this, then I will critique this. Well, I got the paper back, and the word, again, critique, so I thought, was circled in red 3 times, and that's it. I took it back to this professor, and he said, that's wrong. I said, what are you talking about? He said, you're going to have to figure it out yourself. Anyways, after whipping out the dictionary, I would quickly realize that I had written critic instead of the word critique. I will critique this, I will critique this, and I will critique this. I don't need to tell you how ridiculous that sounds and how ridiculous it had to have looked to this professor. Note, in graduate school, straight A's is the standard. And this isn't Harvard, I was at Cal State Los Angeles, but this is the standard across the board with graduate schools. There's a reason it's called a master's degree. You're expected to get A's. If you get a B, they look at you funny. If you get a C, you're on academic probation. A C is considered an F. It's not a pass. And since I was a graduate assistant, I had a teaching position, I could not be on academic probation and teach, i.e. I would not be able to have a job if I got a C in this class, which is where I was headed in Dr. Olsen's class. I was headed for a C grade. 2 weeks before Christmas, I went to this man's office. I didn't make any excuses. I just needed to lay out the truth and know where I was headed here. So I went to him and I said, Dr. Olsen, I'm currently getting a C in your class. I know that is an F. If I do get a C, I will be on academic probation and I will lose my teaching position here at Cal State Los Angeles. I will lose my job. I can't afford to lose my job. I need to make money to pay my bills, my rent, etc. Please let me know now if I'm going to fail your class so I can start planning accordingly. He looked at me and he said, if you prove to me you know what it is my job to teach you before the end of this class, I will justifiably give you a B-. Furthermore, he went on to say to me, Dwayne, aren't you one of the speech coaches here at Cal State Los Angeles? Didn't you do speech? I said, yeah. He said, why don't you just write your papers like you would a speech? It's the same thing. I said, what do you mean? He said, when you write a paper, just give us an introduction, a thesis, a preview, body with clear transitions, restate your thesis, summary, conclude with leaving us thinking. Why don't you just do that when you write your papers? And I said, Dr. Olsen, because no one's ever mentioned that to me. And he said, well, that's what you should do. At that point, this man who I hated more than anything completely changed my life. I went from being able to have organized, structured thoughts in speech to doing it on paper. This would allow me to become a full-time professor. This would allow me to become a paid speechwriter and coach for executives in the real world. And on that, I've often been accused of being picky when it comes to grading writing. You haven't seen picky until you've worked with successful professionals, executives in the real world. And there's a reason they're so successful. They're picky. So if my pickiness with your writing seems a little over the top, you can thank Dr. Olsen at Cal State Los Angeles, a man who I hated, who have now grown to be so thankful for. Thank you, Dr. Olsen. And also, side note, there's a reason my workbook is called Empowering Speech. The ability to write and speak is empowering, and I hope you take advantage of it.